shooter wrote that manifesto and that this was inspired by his hatred of people here in this community.
That's Beto O'Rourke showing just how horrified he was, as many of us have been, over the mass shooting that took place in El Paso, Texas over the weekend. 20 people were killed and dozens more were injured as a result of this shooting. It took place at a shopping center in El Paso. The shooter then went into a Walmart and continued opening fire. Now, the authorities were able to apprehend the gunman, and he is currently in custody. He's a 21-year-old who had posted an anti-immigrant manifesto online right before he committed this act of domestic terror. Law enforcement authorities have delved into the background of 21-year-old Patrick Crusius, whom two officials identified as the suspect who opened fire in El Paso. At this point, everyone has identified him as the shooter. What may have motivated the attacker remains a focus of investigators who have examined a manifesto posted online that included screeds against immigrants. So the manifesto specifically referred to migrants, specifically Mexicans, taking over the state of Texas. He also referred to it as an invasion, something that we hear quite often from the likes of Donald Trump. He would refer to the migrant caravan as an invasion. And he also talked about how this was what he needed to do to essentially protect the country and protect the white race, which he was concerned was being taken over by Latinos crossing the border. Now, Sheriff Richard Wiles from El Paso said, quote, "The Anglo man came here to kill Hispanics. I'm outraged and you should be too. This entire nation should be outraged. In this day and age, with all the serious issues we face, we are still confronted with people who will kill another for the sole reason of the color of their skin." And it shouldn't really be shocking or surprising. We already had a giant issue with gun violence in America. We already had a giant issue with mass shootings in America. And then when you combine that with the rhetoric that you hear from Donald Trump, this type of action shouldn't be surprising. And it should be a moment of self-reflection, especially for Trump and the right wing. And Cenk, before you jump in, I just want to show you compilation, just a few examples of what Donald Trump has said about immigrants.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. Illegal immigrants with criminal records, ordered deported from our country, are tonight roaming free to threaten peaceful citizens. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
President Trump today tweeting, without any evidence, criminals and unknown Middle Easterners are mixed in.
Take your camera, go into the middle and search. You're gonna find MS-13, you're gonna find Middle Eastern, you're gonna find everything. This is an invasion. When you see these caravans starting out with 20,000 people, that's an invasion. I was badly criticized for using the word invasion. It's an invasion, and it's also an invasion of drugs coming in from Mexico, okay?
So in the manifesto, it talked about a Hispanic invasion, and it said, send them back. And then it said that if the country falls, or it'll be because of the fault of the traitors. So all language that Donald Trump has used, if you can't see the connection, you're trying desperately not to see it. Either because you're a right winger who wants to protect the president under any circumstance, or you're the media and you like to do political correctness because you don't want to be yelled at by Republicans. So you go, well, it could be that or it could be this. No, it can't be anything. So now, if you want to say, well, does that mean Donald Trump is personally responsible for this? Well, that's an interesting conversation that's more theoretical. What degree of culpability does he hold? But was the guy encouraged by Donald Trump's rhetoric? It seems plainly obvious. He's saying the same exact things as Donald Trump, egged on, etc. Now, is that the only reason why this shooting happened? Of course not. There's a lot of people that are angry in a lot of different countries, right-wing, borderline fascists in places like Brazil, but they don't have as much access to weapons in other countries. Brazil's already bad enough with plenty of weapons and a lot of violence, but not nearly as bad as us. because we have 300 million guns. So are the guns a huge part of it? Obviously. Look, anyone who says otherwise is either lying or a moron. You can't kill 22 people with a knife or a rope. It's super hard. So every once in a while there'll be a rampage with a car and somebody will be like, aha, there's one exception or two exceptions. No, the exception proves the rule. And then over 90% of the time it's a gun, and it causes mass damage that other weapons cannot cause because it's designed to kill people. And when you mix in the toxic stew of guns, which has been driving mass shootings for decades in America, in other countries that don't have them, there aren't mass shootings. It's a fact. I don't care how much the right wing cries about it. You know, they should be crying and worried about the actual people murdered. Instead, they turn around and they're like, oh, my beloved NRA. I have to go protect the NRA instead of protecting actual citizens, while they pretend to be pro-life. No, you sold out the pro-life movement for the benefit of the NRA, and so the gun manufacturers can make more money. So don't ever call yourself pro-life, because whenever this happens, you make excuse after excuse after excuse for guns that are designed to kill people, and a lot of people. And then you put in the white supremacy and the hatred and the demagoguery, and it becomes obvious. Do you know that there's a study done that after Donald Trump gives a rally in a particular place, hate crimes go up by 226%. 226%. Guess where Donald Trump had a rally 6 months ago? El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Texas, last year in February, the Washington Post did a breakdown and analysis of campaign contributions given to Republican lawmakers. They're mostly Republican lawmakers by the NRA. And what they found was a huge bulk of those donations go toward lawmakers in the state of Texas. And so that's the reason why Republican lawmakers, on one hand, can protect the gun lobby and go against any and all common sense gun legislation, and at the same time argue that they're pro-life, because they're doing what's convenient for them in any given situation for their own political career. They want the NRA money, so they have to protect the gun manufacturers. They got to ensure that more guns are sold. So their solutions usually include, let's arm more people, right? And then on the other hand, when they're confronted with evangelical voters, they pretend like they're pro-life. They don't stand for anything. They're literally spineless hypocrites. Well, not literally, but I mean, they have absolutely no courage, right? They have absolutely no real principles or values. They're driven by their own self-enrichment, their own political career. That's it. That's all that matters to them. They are not interested in representing the American people.
Look, then there's the Dayton shooting, which we're going to get into later. But in that case, Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, how concerned he is, not that concerned, blocked any legislation on gun reform. Why? Received $3 million in bribes from the NRA. Now, there are legalized bribes in our country. You could just give a politician $3 million and he's still fair and neutral. Oh no, that money doesn't affect him. Hilarious, ridiculous. Mitch McConnell's gotten over $1 million. Donald Trump's gotten $30 million. That's why after each one of these tragedies, he comes out and says, oh, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something. And then he turns around a couple days later saying, just kidding, we're not gonna do anything. In fact, actually, we are gonna do something. We're gonna sell more guns by arming teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So they're never going to do anything about it because they're corrupt. And anyone who doesn't call these politicians corrupt is doing political correctness. Oh, I know Senator Portman or Senator McConnell, and I run into them in the cocktail circuit. And so I feel, a little uncomfortable calling them corrupt. Or Republicans will yell at me, Fox News will yell at me. Those are all excuses for why you lack courage, but they're not reality-based. Everyone in the country, 96% of Americans know that the politicians serve their donors and not their voters. And so are they, you know what federal background checks poll at? 97%. We still haven't passed them.
Exactly. And even if you look at various recent polls on whether Americans want stricter gun regulations, two different polls. One of them is Reuters Ipsos, and they found that around 60% of Americans, this is polling both Democrats and Republicans, want stricter gun laws. So the narrative that you're hearing from these right-wing lawmakers is a false narrative. This assumption that no, Americans don't want gun control, this is a Second Amendment right. No, these are talking points that are fed to them by the NRA.
And let me be super clear. The House has already passed federal background checks. That's the easiest, most mild form of gun control. 60% of Americans say they want much more gun control.
Yes.
Okay, but 97% say at a bare minimum, we got to do a background check on people buying guns. To Democratic leadership's credit, which is rare, they already passed it back in February. So the Senate has blocked it, and Donald Trump says he would veto it. So if you are looking for who is politically responsible for these shootings, it is definitely the Republican Party, 100%. So they didn't pull the trigger, and there are a lot of different factors that go into why the shooting happened, as we just explained. But if you're looking for who's politically culpable, it is not 50-50, it is not even. Anyone who says it in the media is a liar and are cowards. The party responsible for the mass shootings and doing absolutely nothing about them politically is 100% the Republican Party. So if you like mass shootings, keep voting for Republicans. They literally say we will do absolutely nothing about them. And you know why the reason is? Everybody in the country knows it, except the media won't report it as such because, oh my God, it would offend people. It's because they take bribes. They take bribes from the NRA, which is run by the gun manufacturers.
I have to add one other thing. So since we're talking about Texas, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, had of course loosened some of the gun regulations in the state. And in announcing it, he decided to do this like press conference at a gun range. So he's at a gun range, he's shooting the target sheet. And then at one point, he essentially holds it up and says, I'm gonna carry this with me in case and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially I'm gonna carry this with me in case I come across any reporters. So not only do they serve as puppets for gun manufacturers, they also incite violence and glorify violence against individuals they simply don't like. In this case, journalists, which by the way, what does the First Amendment say? Right, the First Amendment, it comes before the Second Amendment, talks about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But these authoritarian, zealots don't care about any of that. They don't. All they care about at the end of the day, they don't even really care about protecting guns. They care about protecting their political career, and that's it.
And today, Donald Trump did a tweet blaming the media for this. In other words, you should be really angry and go after the media. Well, you already encouraged the guys to go after immigrants. You already called the media the enemy of the state. So now your response to a mass shooting is to basically threaten violence against the media. So, I mean, if anyone is having an honest conversation about this is a no-brainer. There is one side constantly encouraging violence, hatred, fear, and demagoguery. It is the Republican Party. If you say otherwise, you're totally full of crap. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.